Is your AI knowledge mature enough? Let's find out with today's special guest, Eryn Peters.
Welcome to the Artificial Intelligence Podcast, where we make AI simple, practical, and accessible for small business owners and leaders. Forget the complicated tech talk or expensive consultants. This is where you'll learn how to implement AI strategies that are easy to understand and can make a big impact for your business. The Artificial Intelligence Podcast is brought to you by Fraction AIO, the trusted partner for AI digital transformation. At Fraction AIO, we help small and medium-sized businesses boost revenue by eliminating time-wasting, non-revenue generating tasks that frustrate your team. With our custom AI bots, tools, and automations, we make it easy to shift your team's focus to the tasks that matter most, driving growth and results. We guide you through a smooth, seamless transition to AI, ensuring you avoid costly mistakes and invest in the tools that truly deliver value. Don't get left behind. Let Fraction AIO help you stay ahead in today's AI-driven world. Learn more and get started at fractionaio.com.
So, Eryn, I'm really glad to have you here today because this is a critical question that a lot of people are asking, which is, how much AI do I need to know to keep my job? And that's the real, people don't say it out loud, but it's what we're all thinking. And let's start from there. How much AI does someone need to know? And does it change based on where you're at in your career? Obviously, if you're in your 20s, you need it more than if you're in your 60s, but how much is enough to get through this first phase of this AI?
Oh, totally. Super valid question, because 47% of people are afraid that the advancements in AI are going to cause them to lose their job within the next 5 years. So it's very topical. But I think basic AI literacy is such a hot topic these days of what does that even mean? Because the basic amount of AI knowledge that an accountant needs in retail industry is very different than someone who's a senior software engineer in the technology industry. But I think that baseline is, do you actually understand what these basic terms are and how they work? Like an assistant versus an agent? Do you know basic prompt engineering? And do you know data privacy and ethics? So knowing a little bit about each of these things is going to be the most important aspect, although ethics, of course, is something that might be a little bit subjective to different people. But I think that each person, based on their job role and industry, are going to have to figure out what this means for them and then pick up those tools. But one thing I'll mention as well that's an interesting development in the EU AI Act is that basic AI literacy is actually required by all companies that are going to be implementing or using AI in the region. So it's like even more of an important topic for us to discuss at this stage.
I think the big challenge from a foundational level is that we haven't decided in the AI world what terms mean. If you ask 50 people what is an agent, you're going to get 50 different answers. The line between bot and agent and automation and agentic is very blurry. And I think that whenever I work with people, it always comes up, they don't know what's possible and not possible, and then they feel bad. And I go, if you actually knew, I would be shocked, because what's possible changes constantly. What I was capable of doing 2 weeks ago and what I'm capable of doing now are very different. So the rate of change, the rate of releases, just in the past week, we get first it's an update from a new AI from China, then it's a different AI from China, then it's Claude puts out a micro update, then ChatGPT puts an update to answer that. And it's, which one are you using? Because if you're using the wrong one, you're not cool anymore. And it's almost like all the time people ask me, are you using this new one? I go, oh, no, I haven't tested it yet. They go, what? And then 2 weeks later, they're like, oh, you're using that one? Gross. That one's so old. That's so 2008. And I'm like, it's too fast to be trendy with AI. Like, I'm a boring ChatGPT guy because I'm good at it. I use other AIs for different things, but this starting point of lack of like consistent language, how can we overcome this barrier for people that are trying to come in? Because this is like, coding is how we exclude people from lots of different societies, right? You're the cool kids because you know all this new words. And this is happening with AI far too much, and that even AI people haven't decided what different words mean. How can we solve this problem, which is, I think, foundation?
Oh, yeah. You're absolutely right. And half-life of skills have totally reduced in the last while, right? Like, it used to be that you could learn a programming framework in university and then that's going to be good for the next decade. But that's just simply not the case anymore. Because, as you said, by the time these terms are even, like, some people are adopting them, they've changed their meaning in the next while. So I think the biggest thing is also not necessarily having to get hung up on the specificity of it, but also just trying things out and knowing general buckets of terms is even more helpful. So if you know a few examples of the types of things that might consider themselves to be agents because you've used them, that might give you a better definition than trying to stay on top of some sort of master glossary that never exists in any industry for us to speak the same language, because the terms are evolving, as you said. So I think the biggest thing is just try things, try to put some labels on them, and then keep talking to your peers, because at the end of the day, that kind of thought about ways that you can use AI is going to come from other people who are doing similar tasks as you. So you constantly have to remember to seek out new alternatives and try new things if you do want to stay on top of it.
Yeah, there's this chase to know all the best tools, which is something I try to take a step back from. I was working on a project recently and they're like, what's the best tool for writing a blog post? What's the best tool for social media? What's the best tool for writing a video script? And I'm like, let's take a step back, because the answer will constantly be changing. And a lot of it's your personality and prompting style. There are people who love Claude and hate ChatGPT and vice versa, and different tools, or they love Access tool or Grok or whatever. So I try to say, let's just stay in core categories so that even if the tool changes, the principles stay the same, because the principles I use for prompting ChatGPT work with any LLM. And the principles for creating an image work with any image generator. And now I think the third area, which when you start talking about agents we're falling into, there's been a merging of IFTTT, which is if this, then that, Zapier. And now Zapier, if you go to their website, it all says we're a no-code platform. They've changed their branding to match what's happening in AI, which is multi-step processes. Because the first phase of AI is I'm using a chatbot and you're doing a lot of copying and pasting. Either you're copying your question or you're copying and pasting the answer into something else. And that's really phase one. The next phase is how do I get it to do the entire task instead of just one step of the task? How do I get it to go from I'm copying and pasting back and forth between two documents in the AI to where it does everything? And that's where no code or automation comes into play. Now, I mostly built in N8N, which is just a different version of Zapier. It's a little more technical and a little less expensive than Zapier, but rather than focusing on the N8N element, I focus on it's the if this, then that element, which is the when this happens, then you make a decision, then this happens. And that core principle is far more important than the specific tool that you're using.
Yeah. Important to look at solutions and not tools, right? Because if you're looking to get a blog post, if you want a high quality blog post, like the variance of difference between these tools, as you mentioned, may be less or might be totally subjective. And so I think if we start thinking about, hey, what is the cost of gray work in me doing and testing all of these tools versus the time to a certain quality of output, that's another major consideration when we're talking about tool selection. And the other big thing to remember is AI adoption isn't just in the frequency or volume of tools that you're using, right? It's about what is the actual application and how much is this an aspirin to the problem that I'm experiencing every day. So it's not as much as staying on top of all of these new sexy tools. Like, I actually don't care if you use 500 or 10. I actually care what type of value you're getting out of these tools. Is it giving you better quality of life? Is it saving you money? What are the actual solutions that you're trying to provide by using these tools? I think is far more important than simply having this huge roster and trying to compare to your friends and like some weird competition of I know the more tools than you do. Congratulations. I bet your subscription on your credit card is just absolutely insane.
Yeah, whenever people make lists of their 50 favorite AI tools, I go, that's impossible. Who has this much time to use them all, right? Using each one for less than an hour a week if you're using all of them, and it means you're not good at any of them. It takes me a lot.
Into the depth to understand the difference. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, there's no way that's possible. You're just choosing whatever has maybe the best affiliate program, I'm guessing, or something like that. And I think that's a lot of the area where I think there's a struggle is in the area of usefulness. So I do like we talk about, I like to talk about what's the problem we're solving and then find the right tool for the problem. And then the next thing is that there's a huge problem with adoption. Even when I build a custom tool for a client and they pay a significant amount of money, they don't realize that I can tell if they use it or not. Like, I can see how much bandwidth is happening because I usually set something in there for monitoring. If they go, there's a problem, then I can go and check the code. And I can tell that people will pay me like a shocking amount of money and then never use it. And it's at the high and the low level. And I'm constantly, that's a struggle to go from I've used it once to I'm using it every day and kind of achieve mastery. How can we create a path where using these tools achieves normality? We've seen this with a lot of technology over the last 30 years, whether it was email in the 90s, search in the internet in the early 2000s, social media. We've gone through different tools. Now, when you work at a job, if you go, oh, I don't know how to turn on a computer, or I don't know how to use it, people would be shocked, but it used to be normal. Sending an email used to be as significant as sending a written letter. That's not the same anymore. That's gone. So now we're so good at using these tools, but the adoption was very slow. To learn how to use PowerPoint, 5 years between when it was available and you had to know how to do it. Same thing with email. But now that there's not 5 years to learn AI, you don't have that much time. So how can we, and how do you, when you approach people that want to learn AI enough to protect their jobs, how do you help them go from knowledge to implementation?
Classic tale of the difference between project management and change management, right? Is project management is over as soon as I close last year, I take it in the product and technical implementation is done. The change management is when it's business as usual. And this can be the most perfect technical solution that you're implementing for your team. But if someone fears that it's going to steal their job, they're just simply not going to use it. So there's not just a lack of skill that's going to prevent them from using this type of technology. There's also fear. There's all kinds of different things that might block them above and beyond skill sets, right? So I think we have to go, okay, what is the true reason why people aren't using this technology? And the way that they overcome that is going to be different, because some people just simply don't use it because they forget. So you're actually trying to train them how to develop a habit. Like, I have a very non-technical solution for this. I have 2 sticky notes on my monitor. One is, will money solve this problem? And the other is, will AI solve this problem? So it forces me to constantly stay in the habit of going, okay, should I use AI for this? But the second is, are we going to help them to reduce fear? So what types of tools and training can we give them to reduce fear? Is it understanding more about how these things work and how the data is being shared? Is it an ethical concern where they go, I feel like this is stealing IP, and you can just show someone where that is coming from? Again, all back to these basic AI literacy topics. And then, of course, there's the skill aspect that we're talking about, which is the actual technical skill to be able to learn how to use these tools and how to go. This could be peer learning sessions with other people who are learning the tools and say, oh, I experimented with this week in this application of that tool. And the other could be, how are we making like common language among these tools? So for all of our AI tool developers, are we using similar UI UX principles where most people know how to use ChatGPT now? So for most kind of chat and assistant environments, do they look and feel and smell similarly so people can pick up some of these basic practices that weren't as common in a traditional SaaS environment? So I think there's, like, when it comes to training and adoption, we really have to understand, what is the barrier? Is it truly that they don't know how to use the technical aspect of the tools and they just need to learn how to go through it? Or is it more soft skill related, where we need to teach them the background of how this stuff works to reduce fear or to gain confidence, or any of these other things that might be related in that area?
I find that one of the challenges is inertia, which is, I've always done it this way. It's been a long time building a habit. I'm just as guilty of this. Once I develop a good process, it's very hard to convince me to change it, because you have to look at how much time would the new process save me, but also how long will it take me to master the new process. I think that's where a lot gets lost, especially when you build a tool, you show it to them, like, that's amazing. But they don't feel it because they're not doing it themselves. And it's that bridge that's very challenging to cross. And it's that inertia. And this is where we see a lot of things, which is things like, people say things like, that's just the way it is. It was the way we've always done it. Or if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And I see this, especially larger or companies that have been around for longer. They have an advantage of inertia, but it also becomes a disadvantage at a time like this when you need to get the train to turn. How can we rebuild habits and alter that inertia?
Yeah, I think it has to be both a bottoms up and top down approach in different ways. Everyone has to see and understand the value and try to understand what you're supposed to accomplish. Are we just using AI because, you know, we're a startup and we got funding and someone said that we'll get more funding if we use the word AI, right? We need to check a box. Or is it something where I truly have a specific business goal and outcome that I want to achieve by experimenting with new technology? What is the purpose of using AI? Let's get alignment both culturally, skill-wise, and then start to move in small amounts. Like, I think the fear of inertia when you're not moving is we have to go 100 miles an hour all at once. And like, the whole point of inertia is objects at rest stay at rest and objects in motion stay in motion, right? You just need a little bit of motion. Like, you don't need to go extremely fast at rocket speed, making a moonshot right away. But how can you do small experiments in ways that aren't disrupting a whole organization or team or workflow, but are just starting to prove some of the benefits towards that goal that you wanted to accomplish? So I think that's the side of inertia that is, hey, we're not doing anything. I don't want to change and I'm stuck in my way. We're not moving. But we also have to pay attention to the opposite side of inertia, right? That most people talk about, which is objects in motion stay in motion. What happens when everyone is experimenting and everybody is trying new tools and it's an absolute lawless place and mess of data privacy, payments and procurement and everything else, right? We need this balance of top down and bottoms up of what is actually needed versus how does it map to business goals. And you need that other side of the matrix, which is what are the guardrails and controls that we have? Am I pushing people to do more or am I guarding people to do less? Because if we don't govern both of these aspects in the same time, it could be absolute chaos. You could have shadow AI even. There's all different types of things that can happen if you don't have the right level of motion and you don't have the right level of control. So it's a tricky puzzle to fix.
Yeah, I think you brought up some of the topics which are really important, which is that when people start experimenting outside of the guardrails of the company, and this is really common, which is, and some companies have banned AI, and I know a lot of AI consultants go, why have they done that? And it's because something happens. Right. Just like whenever there's a new rule, whenever there's a new fence, right? There's a reason there's a sign that says don't feed the animals. Someone fed the animal and something happens, right? That's why they put up a sign until you think no one would ever do that. And then someone does it. So there's this danger because people don't realize, and I've had a lot of clients do this where they forget that once you connect an AI to your computer, everything on your computer is out there. And there's different layers of risk, right? There's just the risk of transmission. As soon as it's going back and forth, and then you have a level of risk, right? You have a level of risk just in the transmission. Then there's a question of, is the company that you're using a good steward of data? There's a lot of temptation right now to use the cheapest tools, and some of the tools out of China are very low cost. And there's this saying in poker, if you look around the room and you don't know who the sucker is, it's probably you. And if you're using a tool that's too good to be true, they're selling your data. Like they're making money somehow, right? If something is free, right? Like Facebook is free and yet they make so much money. How did they make all their money? They sell your pictures, and they sell the pictures of your kids, and they sell your data, and they sell your data to again and again. So if you're not paying for it, you're paying for it more in the back end. And that's really a critical lesson here, which is that when you start experimenting with tools, you have to be aware of not just what the terms of service are, but like what promise do they make? Do they even say that they'll protect your data? And that they all say they won't train on their data. And yet, how did they get their original data? Like they're all winking, right? They've all use mass quantities of stolen data. Like it just is what it is, right? So the question really becomes, how much do you believe? Yes, we stole your data before, but we're not going to steal your data now. And when you play with a lot of different tools, that's when you have the risk there. Now, when you have an enterprise contract, then you can have actual contract with the company that says, we're not going to train on your data. That's the next level. But we've already seen things where companies will change the terms of service. Adobe did this. They changed the terms of service, say, hey, anything you've ever done with us, we could train on our data. It's like, wait, what? You can't. They made like a backwards like facing rule, right? And then they change it back. They go, just kidding. But also because it was up for just a few hours, that's enough that everything before that they can still do. No matter that they changed it back, they still have enough coverage to grab all your old data. And it's like, we see these companies now do this thing where they get caught and they go, oh, we're so sorry. We'll never do it again. And that's really, is that what happened? Or did you get too much pushback and now you're going to try it a different way? We constantly see that. So I think that data protection, privacy, and being careful with your data. And what I find really interesting is companies will use the AI of one of their competitors and feed all of their data. And I'm like, what, are you sure they're not going to use it? And the effort to even have an isolated AI or a company AI that's on your own server, it's not that hard. It's not that expensive. It's not that far outside the window. And it's compared to the cost and the risk, like it's very low cost, but it's a big challenge because it sounds scary and complicated. So when people start thinking about where the line is, where do you start with as far as protecting data and as far as being cautious with your own data and your client data?
It's something that each company has to evaluate where they're adding this in and where it actually makes sense, right? Like if you're a healthcare company, you probably have way more concerns with what types of data that you're uploading than if I'm a small boutique graphic design agency that's going to be maybe using a little bit of AI to help me pump out designs on my own style, right? So I think everyone has to decide what are the guardrails of which areas of the business you're going to do. Also, what type of data are you protecting as well? But it's true, not to sound too tinfoil hat and morbid about it, but I don't think data privacy is going to exist in my lifetime, because we look at all these times, just as you said, Meta is found red-handed stealing and selling your data, because if you're not paying for the product, you're the product. And then they said, we won't do it again. And then it happens again. So I think we're going to start going down the route of these companies making more and more of their own LLMs and training them up base models and then not sending this out into the world. But I'm also curious to hear your thoughts on this. The way that I look at it is then these models go to die, right? Because the reason that they're great is because they have all of this great information. But if all of us start taking and not giving back to the system, then the system starts to fail, right? So we have these big kind of irrelevant and useless pools of information that we can't use so much. So where is like the cost benefit analysis of, I want to protect my own things, but I still want to get the benefit of everyone else's stuff coming through? And like, how do we both feed the machine and participate in the benefit of it?
So my personal theory is, I have two theories I think are getting stronger. The first is the dead internet theory. I think most traffic on the internet is bots talking to each other.
Yep.
It just is. And we're seeing it more and more. It's exploding with AI. And then my second theory is that we're going to see a period of AI idiocracy. So as the amount of data not written by AI decreases, so we've already seen they're using the data from Facebook, not great. Now they're using, then everyone bought the data from Google, then they bought the data from Quora, then they bought the data from Reddit. And that's where you started getting recommendations from Google, which were things like, you should eat one small rock a day to stay healthy. That's a post from someone whose name was a bad word that was obviously a joke, but we thought it was real. They also posted for a while that you should put glue in your pizza to make the cheese stick to the pizza a little bit better. Both of those things are don't do them. They're toxic. Both of them will kill you, but they give lots of bad advice because they can't detect sarcasm. So what we're seeing is they're buying worse and worse and worse data. Eventually they're going to be buying 4chan's data. And then I don't know what's worse than that, where it's 90% sarcasm and pranks. So they've already run out of the good data, right? The smart data, the scientific papers, that's all in there. So what we're seeing is that most of the content on the internet generated in the last year, a large percentage of that, whether it's the majority or not, was generated by AI. This year, it'll be a higher percentage. Eventually, it will be 90%, then 95%, then 99%. So now we're going to see AIs trained on AI content. And I think that's what we're seeing with ChatGPT 4.5, which everyone was hating on recently. And I was like, it's probably just trained on data from another AI. Like, it's trained on stuff it written itself. And like, when I read all these books about AIs going insane, I think this is what happens when you just train on stuff you've written. When the only books you have to read in your library are books that you've written, how long until you start going fully crazy? And I feel like not very long for an AI. So I think that the current methodology, which is to use AIs for creating content, is a poor use case. And that it's the most interesting, but hopefully it will die out. Like, how many times have you seen a post on LinkedIn or some street platform? This new AI video is going to change the world. It's like you would never watch it if someone didn't say it was that video. It's just a bad video that if someone puts the word AI in front of it, now you'll watch it. I've seen a car go down the street before. I've seen a bad animation before. I've seen all sorts of badly drawn cartoons. But now it's AI, so we watch it and it's enthralling. And unfortunately, there's an inverse relationship between usefulness and virality. So the more useless something is with AI, the more people will watch it, click it, and like it. Even on LinkedIn, where everyone's supposed to be smart. And I've seen this with content I posted myself. The lower the quality of the content, the more people respond to it. And it's a revelatory lesson. My wife one time, who's not from America, she was like, she found out, she goes, oh my gosh, I thought everyone from America was smart. And she goes, never mind. When she met her first not smart person, I said, yeah, welcome. Every country has a lot of people that will just click on anything. So I think that we have to switch to this new mindset of usefulness and be more strategic. And the least useful element of AI is content generation. It's so much better at content analysis, strategy, reverse engineering, planning, organizing, moving data around. That's where a lot of the corporate use cases are. But everyone always goes, I want AI to write my social media posts. So I'm like, yeah. And then AI can comment it, and then another AI can comment it. And now you have no engagement with your audience. It's like, the actual result is really bad. So that's my personal theory. I think there's a lot that's used with AI. I just think that the popular cases are the least used.
The thing when it's almost inbred AI, right? I'm training it on its own thoughts and feelings. There's training, and then all of a sudden you get this big mishmash of useless thoughts and content at the end of the day. And we know that people don't click because they've learned something new. In a dozen cases, they click based on emotion. So if something seems crazy or seems interesting or is like rage bait, like people will interact with this type of content way more than anything else. And what's more infuriating than something that's completely useless? But I think it's super interesting, this bot versus bot thing, because in my role as the future of workspace, like we're seeing this really bad when it comes to hiring and the hiring process, because more people than ever before are creating AI generated applications, and more of the hiring process than ever before starts with AI screening assessments. So Workday had interesting stats that came out in the fall, and they're going, is the hiring market and jobs market recovering? We had a 9% year over year increase in job postings and a 9% of job signings. So it is marginally increasing. They had a 30% increase in job applications and a 30% increase of hiring by referral, which means we have bots talking to bots and their applicant tracking systems just going in loops. And people go, oh my gosh, I can't get quality candidates anywhere. But so many people are looking for jobs more than ever before. And then they go, gosh, Jonathan, do you just have a friend that can do this job? Can you refer someone to me? Like, I can't deal with this anymore. And so we're going back to such old school methods of hiring because it's just an absolute downward spiral of trying to get technology that's going to help solve a problem, but completely removing the human and useful element from it, where we're just going way old school and going, did you go to school with anyone? Have you worked with anyone who can do X job? Let's just hire them.
Yeah, as I've been going through this recently, I've hired a bunch of people recently, and what is that? AI writes the application and AI reviews its own applications. It's like ChatGPT is doing both ends. And now people on interviews will absolutely have ChatGPT open and they're looking up the questions and answers. And so you have to develop tricks to catch them out. So you go, oh, this person's playing a little game. And there's so much dishonesty. It's like this game of, oh, I can just get a couple of paychecks before they realize I have no idea what I'm doing. And that mindset, of course, like it's a great way to make a bunch of enemies. And more and more, I say to all my employees, if you know someone, because I can see their work, especially because I hire a lot of coders, so much of that market is filled with people that are a little bit overselling what they can do. And then it just causes problems. But when you find someone who's good, you go, hey, Jonas good like you. Exactly right. I think that we have seen so many, like on average now, if you post a job on LinkedIn that's remote, you're going to get 600, 800, 2,000 applicants, of whom 4 have any of the qualifications you're looking for. And there are more and more sophisticated tools that will create a resume that matches the job. So it's even trickier and trickier. So I'm seeing that all the time. So we ask more and more tricky questions and ask for more and more narrative answers rather than, it's not about what you did. It's like how you did it and why you did it and how you made it feel. Because most people don't prep those answers. And then what'll happen is they'll start prepping those last 2 questions. I do think that in a lot of spaces, it just reminds me of the dating market on a dating website. If you're a guy, you send 10 messages, no response. Next day you send 20. Next day you send 30. And if you're a lady who's getting a lot of messages, sometimes you're getting 100 messages a day. So it's not, your response rate's not increasing. You're getting to a point where you can't respond. Like I sometimes look at these posts on Instagram, they have 500,000 comments. I'm like, you think that this lady is going to scroll and see like the 501,001 comment, and that's what she's going to respond to? It's mathematically impossible to respond to that many comments. If you just click like on it, 500,000 comments would take you years and years. But people, it's very interesting the way crowd brings crowd. So I think you're exactly right that we're seeing these markets where things are shifting. And LinkedIn was really built on the principle of 3 layers of separation. You don't hire your friend, you hire your friend. So I think you're very much onto something. I think we're going to see a lot of shifts in the job market as people play these games and trust starts to lower, because that's what happens. You stop trusting systems because there's a lack of ethics in it. And I think that a lot of what you're doing is very interesting for people that want to figure out how to develop their AI skills, keep their job, or train their entire company. How can they find out more about what you're doing? and find you online, what's the best place to find out the projects you work on and maybe even work with you?
Absolutely. The first thing that I do is I actually write a newsletter about this and take on the role of sifting through all of this noise that you don't have to, and when it comes to the future of work. So you can follow my newsletter, which is weeklyworkforce.com. But I also have a company that I created with my co-founder, Ivo Shabar, and it's called the AI Maturity Index. And basically it was founded as a research project on the principle that the media is scaring people in how AI is going to steal your jobs. We just didn't think that was true. But it's really tricky for people to figure out what they're doing well and what they can do to improve. So we created a 15-minute diagnostic tool. You chat with our conversational AI, and you get a free instant 5-page report on how you're doing, what your strengths and weaknesses are, benchmarks against your peers in the same industry or role as you, and then some recommendations on how to improve. So we do this for individuals. We've got some offerings for teams and organizations. And then we also have a tool that can be white labeled for consultants who can help with the actual implementation of these types of recommendations. So trying to be a compass in the sense that you need to know where you are to know where you're going.
It's very cool. I'll make sure to put the links in the show notes and below the video on YouTube. Thank you so much for being here, Eryn, for another amazing episode of the Artificial Intelligence Podcast.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the Artificial Intelligence Podcast. Make sure to subscribe so you never miss another episode. We'll be back next Monday with more tips and strategies on how to leverage AI to grow your business and achieve better results. In the meantime, if you're curious about how AI can boost your business's revenue, head over to artificialintelligencepod.com/calculator. Use our AI revenue calculator to discover the potential impact AI can have on your bottom line. It's quick, easy, and might just change the way you think about your business. While you're there, catch up on past episodes, leave a review, and check out our socials.